Sons of the Sun podcast. Conversations where we encourage men to level up as we grow in Christ. What is going on, you guys, and welcome to the Sons of the Sun podcast, where we have conversations that encourage men to level up as we grow in Christ. I am your host, Anthony Carlson, and this is episode 7. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, you would notice that I went from episode 2 to episode 7. That is because I didn't record episodes 3 through 6 on video. So if you want to get caught up on episodes 3 through 6, be sure to go to Spotify and check them out there. And while you're at it, give the Spotify podcast page a follow as well as a 5-star rating if you are truly enjoying this content. But if you are a first-time viewer, then I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really glad that you are here and that you're giving your time and energy towards Sons of the Sun podcast and the mission here. And if you are a returning listener or watcher, you would notice that, actually, before I go into that, if you're a returning listener, then welcome back, and I truly, truly appreciate your continued support. Now, if you are a return listener, you will notice that the mission statement has changed just a little bit. It went from having conversations that encourage men to level up and be led by Christ. Now it's to have conversations that encourage men to level up as we grow in Christ. I think changing that up just a little bit is more in line with what the mission here at Sons of the Sun podcast is, because if we are leveling up, we are growing. And that's what we want to do as men that want to become of value, who want to have built godly character. We want to continually level up. We want to continually to grow, and more specifically, grow in Christ. So that's why I changed the verbiage on the mission statement. So, but with all that being said, this is episode 7, and this episode 7 is going to start a series around the topic of self-control, because I truly believe that if we were to level up as men, if we want to grow as men, we had to have self-control over every area in our lives. More specifically, self-control over the area of lust. I think lust and wrath are the two biggest sins that we as men struggle with the most. You know, we all have our vices. We all have our things that we struggle with in our flesh. We all have addictions that we know that we should get rid of. Big ones that, to name a few, are alcohol, drugs, pornography, social media, etc. Anything that comes up when I say addictions, that you could be addicted with, that came to mind, then that a lot of these times these addictions are part of our everyday lives, and that they become second nature for us to engage in them. But in 2 Timothy 1:7, it tells us, "For God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and self-control." And I believe one of the biggest areas in our lives that is hard for us to have self-control over is lust. In the Bible, it tells us that lust is the only sin that God tells us to flee from, not to battle it, not to try to stand up to it with our own will, but to flee from it. In 1 Corinthians 6:18, he tells us, "Flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside of the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against his own body." Just look around us every day. In this over-sexualized culture, lust is rampant, and it's one of the most corrosive sins. Think about all the negative consequences that are rooted in lust. To name a few: rape, pornography, and sexual addictions. Cheating, STDs, unwanted pregnancies, abortions. These are just to name a few things that are negative consequences of sexual immorality, of lust. And I believe if we are to have self-control over this, or abstaining over sexual impulses, that is a huge step for us to level up as men, for us to grow as men, for us to grow in Christ, for us to abstain from sexual immorality altogether. And I'm not without fault here. I'm definitely someone who has struggled and continues to struggle with lust daily. This is a daily battle. In my past, I have a few things written down here that I've struggled with, and I spent about 13 years addicted to pornography and masturbation. I was a big porn addict for 13 years, and I masturbated about 3 to 5 times a day. This is a very vulnerable topic, but it's true, and this is something that I'm not alone in. Um, you know, you hear people talk about like they even say that it's healthy to masturbate a couple times a day, which I think is BS. But addicted to pornography and masturbation for 13 years, I would go, when I would be at work, I would go in the bathroom and I would, let one off a couple of times a day. This was something that, that was a vice for me, letting out all that pent up sexual energy. Um, Another one is I have slept with over 20 women, if I counted correctly. I slept with over 20 women, and a lot of them were previous girlfriends. But in the world, they tell us that as a guy, having a higher body count makes you more of a man, and makes you more valuable, and things like that. But as corny as it sounds, if I can go back, I would take it all back, and I would pursue sexual purity as a man, and stay a virgin until I was married. If I can go back in time, I would do that, truly. And big part of my past with lust struggles is I used to get in between relationships and stealing other guys' girlfriends. I used to love doing that. I've done that a few times, and I used to be more attracted to girls who were in relationships as opposed to that were single. There's nothing great or to brag about that, but that's a big part of my past and struggles with lust and getting in between other relationships. There's nothing good that comes out of that. It wasn't until about 2017 where I found out about the movements of NOFAP and semen retention, and I was really intrigued by the benefits. I was told about not about retaining your seed, about not masturbating. These were very deeply rooted in New Age, because that was around the time I started dabbling into New Age spirituality. But the benefits that drove me in to stop masturbating, to retain my seed, was I would get greater spiritual awareness. Another one was people would be more attracted to me because would have more sexual and magnetic energy from not wasting my semen, because you would have more of that sexual energy within you, and it says that sexual energy is magnetic energy, and therefore that would attract more people to you. It said that you can manifest things better. Am I still recording? Yeah. Okay. Cool. It said it tells us that if you don't masturbate, if you retain your semen, then you can manifest things better. I was very big into the law of attraction and New Age, and manifesting things into my life. I was very big on manifestation, and I was told that if you retain your semen and sexual energy, then you can manifest things easier and better. And I think there is some validity to that on a weird spiritual level. I don't have any Bible verses I can back that up, but from personal experience, I did, manifest things. I noticed I did manifest things easier, and things became more better for me to get when I was retaining my seed. I still retain my seed to this day, so I'm about 5 years into the semen retention journey, but my intentions definitely have changed from when I started back in 2018 till now, because I came to Christ in 2020. And one last thing that I had on my notes here of the benefits from retaining your seed from what I was told is, if you retain your semen or life force energy, it makes you just more powerful as a person. And I think there is something to that. When you have more semen in you, you have more. By byproduct, you could have more testosterone, and obviously when you have more testosterone, you feel more powerful, you feel more confident, and things of that nature. I'm not sure like the science, that's all pseudoscience, but I'm not sure the scientific reasons behind that. But those were the initial reasons why I started dabbling into, the NOFAP and semen retention movement. And that was the start of me abstaining from lust, abstaining from sexual immorality, even if I didn't realize it at the time. But like I said, I came to the Lord in 2020. And since I was about 2.5 years in of abstaining from, masturbating and things like that, it was easy for me to stay diligent on self-control around lust. Well, easier. I say easier because since coming to the Lord, I've had a couple relationships with women who are also Christian, and they're pursuing sexual purity as well. But unfortunately, we had the intentions of waiting for sex before marriage, but we ended up falling into that sexual morality anyway. That just goes to show how powerful lust is. And I don't want you guys to get confused. Like, I believe sex is a beautiful thing, except because sexual energy essentially is life energy. But I believe sex must be within the confines of a marriage that God intended it to be. Any sex outside of a marriage, according to the Bible, is lust. It is a sin. It is considered fornication. That's just blunt and true, straight to the point. In 1 Corinthians 7:9, it tells us, "But if they do not have self-control, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion." In 1 Thessalonians 4:3-5, it goes, "For this is the will of God, your sanctification, that you should abstain from sexual immorality, that each of you should know how to possess his own vessel in sanctification and honor, not in passion of lust, like the Gentiles who do not know God." There's a saying from a man that, I've been following for many years here on YouTube, and he's big on social media as well outside of YouTube, and his name is Elliot Hulse, and I bring him up because he has a quote that I've watched from one of his interviews. I forgot I think it was a guy named Jason Capital, or I forgot, but the small quote goes, "Be married or be a monk." This means if you aren't married or have the intentions of marrying a girl, then focus on God. Focus on your purpose. Focus on becoming a man of value and working towards that. Especially if you're single, especially in today's world, you have to be above average for any woman to look at you or choose you. So if you're not someone who's considered high value, then focus on becoming high value. Women want winners, and good for them. They shouldn't settle for average or below average men. So, most of us men out here are average or below average. That's a very hard reality to swallow, but it's true. If we want to be the top percent of men and be high value, you have to be above average. You have to be a different cloth among the rest. With all that being said, if you're a man who is on his purpose, who's working to becoming that man that you can become, who has self-control over sexual impulses, then slowly over time, people will pick up on that, because you will move different. You'll have different swagger on you because you will be concentrated on the things of God and on your mission. You won't be concentrated on, chasing girls and just wasting your time doing that, when girls shouldn't be your main focus. Women shouldn't be your main focus. Your main focus should be on God and on your mission. And when the right woman comes along, then they will be, a good supporter on your mission. I'm a big believer in God bringing in the right people at the right time in your life, as well as the saying, you attract what you are. So if you're on your purpose, you have pursued sexual purity, you're pursuing God's way and building godly character and becoming a high value man, then I truly believe if it's God's will, He will bring you a woman that is of the same high value. But if you're single and you want a partner, you want a wife someday, or maybe you just want someone around, but you aren't on your purpose. You lack self-control and waste your time chasing girls. You're watching porn, you're masturbating, you're wasting your sexual energy, you're looking through girls' social medias and things like that, and just at the end of the day, having no self-control over lust, then I highly encourage you to start abstaining from lust. I recommend that you literally go cold turkey with this because lust grows the more that you feed it. So you literally have to starve it and flee from it. Abstaining meaning quit watching porn, quit masturbating, quit trying to chase girls. All these things, these things waste your sexual energy. These things take your eyes off God and they keep you in the flesh. This is, if you haven't guessed it by now, if you're not a believer, this believer in Christ, this is a podcast centered for men who are followers of Christ and are trying to level up and grow with their relationship with Christ. And I truly believe if you have self-control over these areas, over the areas of lust, then you will grow in Christ. You will level up as a man because you are focusing on God. You're focusing on your mission and your purpose. And to be honest, when you have self-control over these vices, the vices no longer have control over you. You have control over them, and that is a very powerful thing. With all that being said, I think this is a great time to stop today's episode. So if you liked what you heard, if you liked what you have watched, if you're watching on YouTube, give this video a like, turn on your notification bells, give this page a follow. If you're on Spotify and you haven't done the same thing on Spotify, if you haven't followed, if you haven't given a 5-star rating, please do, and share this with 5 people who you believe that this would benefit from. We're trying to grow here. We can only grow if more people are exposed to the mission, more people are exposed to the message. I truly believe that everything that is discussed here will help men level up. It will help men grow in Christ. And if you aren't a believer in Christ, just find the value in what has been said here. Even if, like I said, if you're not a follower of Christ, there are valuable nuggets that you can take from this. But with all that being said, that wraps it up for today's episode, and I'll see you on the other side. And God bless.